Thanks for joining me on today's Appgate demonstration. Today's topic is actually different client experiences using the Appgate client. So with Appgate, the idea of using Appgate to control user access to different applications typically exists with users in laptops or maybe even mobile devices. So for that reason, we support Windows, Linux, Mac OS, Android, iOS, Chromebooks, just about any kind of device that an end user may be using. And we'll dive into some of those very specific applications in just a second. But before I do that, there are other use cases where a client is actually not needed with the Appgate environment. And so those different concepts would be applicable to applications that are purely web-based. And so if a company has web-based applications where they've deployed a web-based application in their own data center, or they've got web-based apps they've deployed in the cloud, they can actually use the what's called the Appgate Clientless portal to access those applications. Let's see what that looks like. So I'm going to open a new tab here on my browser and go into a URL. This can be completely customized by the customer themselves, whoever deploys this. This is a special appliance within Appgate. So it's called portal.sdpdemo.com in my case. I own that sdpdemo.com domain. And this pulls up the login page effectively. So this is the clientless portal. There's no Appgate client required to be installed on my end user device to be able to use this portal. But I want to point a couple of things out before I actually log into it. So I got here by typing a URL in the address bar. I could just as easily have gotten here by saving this as a favorite. I could also get here by clicking on a link that is in an email or any URI launchable link, like somebody shares a link with me. I could actually save the link of the protected application and click on that link and use it to authenticate through this portal to get to the application. So there's lots of ways that this portal can be leveraged, directly accessed, bypassed, lots of different scenarios in play. Second thing I want to point out is that this is customized to me. This login screen is my choice. I've chosen the blue. I've got the Appgate logo on it. You can customize it for your look and feel as well. You can put your company logo on it, your company colors, and make it feel more homey for your users in terms of accessing your applications. So that's customizable from that perspective. Another thing to point out, item number 3 here, is just like with our Appgate client, we've got the ability to integrate multiple identity providers using anything that leverages LDAP, SAML, Radius, or OIDC as a standard for that identity provider. So this would include Active Directory, Azure AD, Ping Identity, Duo, Okta, Jump Cloud, Centrify. The list is long. I've got some examples in my environment. Most of our customers only have one identity provider, but if you've got a scenario where employees would authenticate against one identity provider and third parties would authenticate against another, you could absolutely accomplish that within your environment like this as well. So I'm going to pick on just my simple LDAP connection. So let's use that. I'm going to, instead of pulling it out of a repository, I'm just going to type it in, right? So I've selected my login, my password. I've given it to the Appgate Clientless portal. Well, that Clientless portal actually initiated a client for me on the portal appliance and communicated to my Appgate controller and said, hey, I've got some credentials here. Please validate them. That controller said, yeah, he looks like he's valid. I see the connections coming in from a clientless portal. So because of that, let's grant him access to the applications he qualifies for, limited to the web-based content that's out there. So here's the look and feel, right? So I know who I am. I've logged in. I can see I've got multiple tunnels, multiple encrypted tunnels running from the Appgate portal to those various data centers that I've been granted access to. I can look at the list of entitlements that I've been granted access to as well, so I can see that. Of course, this is exposed so that I can show it, but as an administrator of environment, you might want to hide this from your users, so you have the ability to control that as well. And from here, I can use my quick launch icons to go and launch into a particular application if that's something I wanted to do. So there's a simple PHP bulletin board. Appgate's giving me a message that I've been redirected to this, so I can, not show it again or whatever, but I can interact with my users a couple of different ways. and I could go and use the app, right? Quote unquote, use the app. So that's interesting. So the first question you might be asking is, can you do SSH or RDP through the clientless portal? And the answer is today, no, not natively. So we've integrated Guacamole with our clientless portal to allow us to actually do SSH and RDP through that clientless portal. And notice I can implement multi-factor authentication as well. And so I've actually got it's not an option for me. So I've got to enter a one-time password from my phone to actually successfully connect to that Guacamole server, which I don't have handy at the moment, but that's okay. I think you get the point. Once I enter that MFA password, it'll launch the Guacamole console, and then I'll be able to take advantage of the things it provides to me, which is SSH and RDP to various instances in the environment. And so that's it in a nutshell. That's the clientless portal. So how does that compare to the locally installed client that you might find on a machine as well? So I'm going to kill that browser tab, so I'm no longer connected to Appgate at the moment. So here is my locally installed Appgate client. I'm of course not connected to anything. I'm not authenticated. But if I do provide some credentials, again, same identity provider that I used in the clientless portal, so therefore same credentials. My experience is a little different. I'm not using a browser. I'm using the Appgate client itself to do this. But once I do get authenticated and logged in, I get served a list of applications. And again, I'm not limited to browser-based apps now, so I get a whole lot of I get a lot more applications. Some are SSH, some are web, some are RDP, and other things too, like Azure Blob Storage and whatnot as well. So lots of other applications that are made available. But the point is, the look and feel is pretty identical. I've got quick launch icons. I can very easily see the number of data centers that I'm connected to. How many encrypted tunnels do I have, and where are they? I can dive into the list of entitlements that have been assigned to me, right? So I've got a long list of those as well. And so that's the locally installed client. Again, same look and feel on Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. Now let's shift gears for just a second, and I'm going to pull my iPad into the conversation. And let's see if I can't share that screen real quick. So I'm attempting to share my iPad screen onto the machine where I'm doing the recording, and there you can see that. So if I make this just a little bigger so it's actually usable. So now obviously this is an iPad. I'm swiping with my finger. You can see I'm swiping around from application to application, right? And so let's go find that Appgate SDP client app. So there's that application itself. I can pick my same LDAP identity provider that I want to use to authenticate my user with. And once that gets set, then I can give some credentials to that Appgate client. And you'll see that the look and feel of the Appgate client itself is the same. Okay, so as you can see, I've changed my profile that I want to use to the same profile I was using on the other clients, my clientless portal, as well as my locally deployed MacBook client. So now I've chosen that simple LDAP connection on the MacBook, it's on the iPad. And so let's give those same credentials again. And so that client on my iPad is actually going out to the Appgate controller saying, hey, I've got some credentials here, LDAP oriented, go and validate them. Sure enough, they were valid. So that controller then posture checked my laptop or my iPad and said, hey, I'm going to grant you access to particular applications because this is an iPad. Different OSs might result in different applications, even though I'm using the same credentials to access the environment. And so you can see I've got some different apps here. Not limited necessarily to just web-based applications, but for the most part, those are the things that are going to work best on an iPad. Yeah, so I can launch into various apps. I've got access to a Splunk instance within the environment as well as things like that, right? So this is the same look and feel that I would have on any iOS operating system, including the iPhone, as well as Android operating systems as well. And then finally, we also use the Android client on Chromebooks. And so we do have a requirement that your Chromebook be able to run Android clients. And if you're running those kind of Chromebooks, that version of Chromebooks, that relatively recent version, then we'll support that Android client running on that Chromebook as well. So that's the look and feel of the various clients that we've got here at Appgate. Again, Windows, Linux, Mac OS, Android, iOS, and Chromebooks. And then we've also got the headless or the clientless portal option for web-based applications. And there's even some other ways that we can initiate a client through some server-to-server connectivity using a specialized appliance that we call a connector. And so that's a completely separate demo. And so tune into that and see what it looks like. Thanks for watching.